I remember having a teacher from the UK, and he gave us this thing before he left. And I don't know if it's just like a saying or if it's from someone specific. You've probably heard it, which is called "Ever tried, ever failed, no worries, try again, fail better," right? And that is all that stand-up comedy is, and that I think about that in life all the time still. It's just try again and just fail better. Like, just be better at what you than you were last time, and you will just get better.
Welcome to the Funny in Failure podcast, a podcast that celebrates failure and shines the light on the emotional side of comedy and life with yours truly, Michael Kahan.
Welcome. Today's guest is amazing. He has this uplifting and positive, childlike energy. He smiled the whole way through. Thor is super upbeat, funny, and has a great story, including being a one-night stand baby. And his take on relationships is really interesting and also unbelievably hilarious. He's currently touring this show and will also be in Melbourne for the comedy festival, so check it out in the episode notes. You don't want to miss it. Anyway, we cover so much in this chat. I had a brilliant time. I reckon you'll love this one. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. Thor Stenhaug is a Norwegian-born, London-based stand-up comedian and actor. He regularly performs in some of the biggest comedy clubs across the UK. He's a Channel 4 Sean Lock Award Finalist, and he had a completely sold-out run at the Edinburgh Fringe in 2025 with his debut show, One Night Stand Baby. He recently completed a run at Soho Theatre in London. He's also offered tour support for some amazing comedians, and he was also shortlisted for the British Comedian of the Year, despite not being British. So as you can imagine, we dive deep and we cover a lot, and we chat about being a one-night stand baby, being a Harry Potter walking guide with unexpected guests, practicing small talk, learning English, sneeze breaks, stories from writing for the local newspaper, being a comedy doorman in Norway, the rule of Jante, his Melbourne shows, bombing in silence, tours, plus plenty more. Before we get into this epic chat, I'd love it if you could share the podcast, follow, like, subscribe. You know the drill, as it allows me to lock in amazing guests like this one, and it really helps me grow the podcast. Okay, cool. Let's get into it.
Oh, this could be a great place to start. I saw that when you came to England, that you were a Harry Potter walking guide or tour guide. Can you please tell me about this? It sounds hilarious.
Oh yeah. That was like one of my first ever jobs when I moved to the UK, was that I just started doing comedy, and this guy who ran an open mic like spoke about doing Harry Potter walking tours, and I was like, "Is that true? Did you do that?" And he was like, "Yeah." He was like, "Do you like Harry Potter?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Do you need a job?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I would do this like walking tours, and it would mainly be for like Americans who were like visiting London, and they liked Harry Potter, and also they wanted to see like London. But I'd only been there for like 4 weeks. So it was very much a blind leading the blind situation. But obviously I couldn't say that. So when they were like, "How long have you been in London for?" I always just had to lie and be like, "Yeah, 5-6 years." But I just moved. So it was like so weird because I had to take them on the tube, and then I was like making sure that we went the right way. And I remember one time, like one of the tube stations were closed and we had to go another way, and I remember having to get up like Google Maps without them realizing. But it was fun. The guy who played Professor Quirrell in the first film, do you remember him? The guy with the turban, Voldemort on the back of his head. He came on the tour.
Like the actual guy, or a guy dressed up as him?
No, the actual guy, the guy who plays him, came on the tour. But I had no idea it was him, because it was this Danish family who were like, the Danish family was like, "Oh, we have a friend who lives in London. Is it okay if he tags along on the tour?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course not." And then at the, we're kind of like, I get chatting with him. he tells me he's an actor. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I'm thinking, like, I wonder if I've seen him in anything. I remember that was my first thought. And then we were just kind of like chatting a bit. And then, like, about 2 hours into the tour, I said like some fun facts about Robbie Coltrane, who plays Hagrid. And he comes up to me, this guy, and he goes, he keeps talking about him, but he keeps calling him Rob. And I was like, all right, mate. Yeah, Rob, sure, Rob. And then suddenly there's a moment where I look at him and I suddenly remember that at the start of the tour, the Danish friends had said like he was in the film, but I thought they were just like joking, or as maybe he was like an extra in the background.
Yeah.
And there was like a moment where he was like talking to me, where we looked at each other, and it was almost like he was like, "It's me," and I was like, "Oh my days!" But then I didn't want to like, I just pretended I was like, "Yeah, I thought it was you," you know. And then I was like, obviously, I'd not thought it was him at all. But it was a very, very lovely guy.
You are the worst Harry Potter ever that you didn't recognize the villain of the first film. How?
Yeah.
Nothing against this actor. Do you reckon that he goes on why would he want to go on a Harry Potter tour? I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but it is so absurd. Do you think this is his thing? Like every week he just rocks up to Harry Potter thing?
Maybe it was just like, that was like his claim to fame, you know? So maybe he's just one of those people, like, there's a Harry Potter walking tour, and it's like, yeah, guys, that's right, it's me. And then there's just this Norwegian guy who, first of all, haven't watched Harry Potter enough, and also don't know his way around London at all, and he's just ruining everything. But yeah, maybe that's it. He's just like, that's right, it's me, I'm here.
I reckon he's done it more than once. That's going to be my theory. Until I reach out to him, that's fact. Also, was it like the piano teacher where you have to just be like one step ahead of the student? Like, would you make up stuff on the tours? Did they give you like a brief? Were you like, this tree was from, how did you know what to say and what to do?
Yeah, I mean, they would like, I remember the way that I learned this was very much that I followed a guy doing the tour twice, and then they were like, off you go with your own group. And I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
There was definitely things that I was like, I'm not completely sure if this is true. And there was one thing that when I quit, the guy revealed to me. He was like, yeah, I just made that up because the tour just needed something at this point where it was very much like, oh, do you see this like this dark alley here? This was the inspiration for like Voldemort's home or something like that. And I was like, wow. But he was like, no, it wasn't at all. I just made that up because there was just too long where we didn't talk about anything. And it was certainly, I remember like, because I hadn't like been in London that much, there was a lot of me going like past the pub being like, guys, this pub has the best fish and chips in London. And like saying stuff like that.
Yeah.
But
and you've like never been there before?
Never been. And I remember there was this American family that was like, this American family was like, oh, you need to come with us. And then they took me to the pub to have fish and chips. And I remember being like, I don't even know what the entrance is. And I was so worried that I would
like after you.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. What are some of the worst things that you've seen on a Harry Potter walking tour?
Some of the worst things I've seen.
Or like weird or strange. I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No, that's all right. I think I had this one. So during the summer, it would be really busy and all the tours will be sold out. There'd be loads of people in London. But in type January, it would kind of be the low season. So there wouldn't be a lot of people. And I remember there was one time I had to do the Harry Potter walking tour to one person. And it was this Chinese lady who I figured out as I was like doing my intro, didn't speak English that well. And also had not seen or read any Harry Potter books.
No, that's unbelievable.
It was so weird. Like I was doing the intro and then she was like not listening to me. She was like in her bag while I was like kind of explaining the tour. And then she gets out this like piece of A4 sheet like in her bag and she shows it to me. And it's a picture she's printed out of Buckingham Palace. And then she went, can we go here?
Are you allowed to like deviate? Are there like rules you have to follow?
I mean, you shouldn't really, but then the thing is, then I took it to the first few places, and I realized she hadn't seen us, like she hadn't seen any Harry Potter films, she hadn't read any books. And I said to her, I was like, "Why are you on the Harry Potter walking tour?" And she was like, "My daughter loves Harry Potter." And I was like, "Great, but where is she?" You know.
Yeah,
And
why
then
haven't
I
you
did
watched the
this.
movies?
Yeah, she hadn't done it. She hadn't like seen anything. So then I was like, okay, this is clearly not working. So then we did go to Buckingham Palace, and then she actually took me to like a cafe, and she bought me carrot cake and a hot chocolate after, and we just chatted for a bit because I was like, you're not going to get any joy out of this at all.
That's so nice. I'm sure that makes you a better comedian. If you can deal with situations like that, you probably don't care as much if there's one person or very little people you bomb. Do you ever reflect on this, and has this made you a stronger comedian?
Um, I don't know. Has it made me a stronger comedian? It's definitely made me. Well, I mean, you definitely had to improvise, especially if it's just one person. Like that means that I'm just gonna have a conversation for 2.5 hours with that person. But the thing is that when I was younger, I've always been very good at like keeping conversation. And when I was younger, I used to me and my best friend in Norway, we used to practice small talk because like our biggest fear was that we would like get into a conversation and they would get a bit awkward. So we would like practice like little tricks that we could do for small talk. And so I'm actually very good at small talk if I can be so humble and say that myself.
That is the greatest skill in the entire planet. What were the things that you learned? Do you watch Curb Your Enthusiasm?
Not really, no. I do watch
Uh,
Seinfeld, but I haven't watched Curb a lot, no.
Oh, Seinfeld's amazing. I know you're Norwegian, but no one in England watches or has watched Seinfeld, which blows my mind. Was it popular in Norway?
Yeah, it's so strange. Like when I moved to the UK, how. But the thing is, the UK. I mean, maybe Australia has more like of a UK sort of like culture, but I feel like the UK sometimes they just have their own like little like yeah. Have you
Mm.
seen Gavin and Stacey? And I'm like, no one in the world has seen Gavin and Stacey, but you guys.
Yeah.
And but there's this arrogance that thinks that we have all seen this, and then they go, no, 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 you've seen it. Trust me. When I show it to you, you've seen it, and then they show it to me. I'm like, I haven't seen it.
No one
And
has.
I felt the same when I started with Seinfeld. I was like, or like when I moved here, I was like, no one's ever seen Seinfeld. But also, I mean, I haven't watched Seinfeld in a while. I also feel like it's probably not one of those things that's aged that well, but I also feel like we're kind of like out of the phase now where we're like, well, this hasn't aged well. Like I think now there's just maybe more of an understanding that things don't necessarily age well because we progress in time, which is a very good thing, you know.
Mm.
But it's kind of hard to go back and be like, this is super problematic because so much in history is problematic.
Everything. I think that's a really good take with Seinfeld. I watch it now and I can appreciate. I think I think it's amazing, and to just appreciate it for what it was and where it was. No notes on my end. So was it very popular in Norway?
Yeah, but it was kind of before my time. I actually used to watch it. My mum used to like record it when I was a kid. So it was kind of when I was a teenager that I was introduced to it by my mum. And then at the start, did not like it at all. It was like, this is so boring. Like, there's nothing happens. And then
Yeah.
you realize that's the point of it. And then you kind of like it. Yeah. But I have seen all of Seinfeld, and one of my friends, we very much bonded over Seinfeld, but I was probably more of a Friends, How I Met Your Mother, Scrubs, sort of like the sentimental. I need a bit of sentimentality,
Yep.
and Seinfeld is obviously known for not having like an arc, like a story
Yep.
arc, or
They have
um,
they have like a rule: no hugs, no learning. I think that was their motto, something like
and I love hugs so much. I love
that.
hugs so much. I think learning can, yeah, I agree. Like learning can be like, and then I realized that we're all
And we're all
friends.
happily ever after. Yeah.
And obviously, Scrubs can be a bit like that. Have you ever seen Scrubs?
Every show you've mentioned, I love.
Okay, cool. And obviously, Scrubs is like re-released now. And it's actually one of the few things that I've seen that gets re-released like years and years later, where I'm like, this is good. Like I'm like, I can't.
Oh,
This is. really well done, I think.
That is so rare when they do reboots. Like all of them suck, and I actually have heard good things about Scrubs. Maybe I'll probably watch it. Going back to small talk, the reason I brought up Larry David is because he hates small talk. He thinks it's pointless, but I think he's not very good at it, and that's like kind of a bit in curb. But to master small talk, please tell me. You said like tricks and stuff you learned. What were you doing to practice? Because everyone here is listening, and they need to know these secrets.
Well, I think like a lot of it was just like you need to learn how to like ask questions and like how important that is. I feel like so often if you're in a conversation with someone that you don't know that well and it's not going very well, it's very often because that other person isn't asking any questions. Like, because you just have to make some sort of effort. Also, one thing that we did practice a lot is because this was kind of around the time where we had become like late teenagers, and it was like the first time that we would like bump into people like in the shop that we'd gone to school with, but that we didn't necessarily know anymore. Like they weren't like close friends, but it was kind of like you felt like you should say hi sort of thing. So we became very good at being like, kind of chatting and making sure that the chat felt good. And then the main thing is that you got to leave before the chat gets awkward.
Yeah,
But you
that's
can't
a
just be like,
skill.
that is the skill. So like
Yeah.
but then you would come up with ways to end the chat. That was like the main thing that we would practice. I used to have this trick that I used to do where I used to be like, I'd be like, oh well, I gotta go because I've got this desk I gotta put up in my bedroom. And I would always say that. I said it would
That's
be
such
like,
a specific one.
so you wouldn't lie about it, right? So I would just like, or like a wardrobe, you could say. So like I'd be chatting with this and we'd like have a good time. I'd be like, oh, anyway, man, great to see you, but I gotta shoot off. I got this wardrobe that I gotta put up. But anyway, good to see you, man. See you later.
That's I think my skill, so your skill was the small talk. My skill was reaching the highest point and then just leaving. George also does it in Seinfeld where he says a joke and he goes, I'm out. Good to see you. That to me is also a great skill. I'm glad that.
Yeah,
That's
I'm
so
bad
specific.
at that. It's harder, I think, to leave when you tell like a joke and people laugh. I think that's harder because for me, I would always get like, oh, I want more, I want more. Like this is
Yeah.
fun. What about you? Are you good at small talk?
I am, but I don't enjoy it. Even though I'm only like a couple of years older than you, I think, I despise small talk, yet I go out of my way and do small talk. There's a people pleaser in me. I think I am. My wife says I'm good at it, but I don't enjoy it. There's nothing worse to me than we get all the time. Oh, the weather's a bit tricky here. Yeah, big fella. And many years ago, I've said this many times, but when I was an accountant, we barely had windows we couldn't see. And you'd have the same conversation 100 times. Do you see the weather, buddy? I'm like, no, there's no windows. I can't see anything. So,
Oh
yeah, I
my
don't.
days, you had no
Yeah.
windows.
You did, but there was like a lack of a view and there weren't that many windows. And yeah, and it was the same conversation. Here it's all about what do you do? The footy. I know you like soccer, but our footy. And
Hmm.
I don't like football as much purely because every conversation I meet with someone I don't know, it's about the football and I don't want to hear their terrible takes. What about you?
Well, I actually think that's a big. That's where you've gone wrong. That's like rule number one is that you gotta enjoy the sports. Like, so
Yeah.
I like soccer. And that is the best thing because then you can just chat to anyone. Like, I bumped into my neighbor. We just had like a new person moving into like the building that I live in,
Oh, nice.
and we ended up chatting for like 45 minutes because he liked football or like soccer.
So I like our football. I just don't enjoy people's terrible takes. Not saying that I'm good, but it's like a general like clickbait because our media for sports is very small in general, but AFL. So it's like they pick one topic which shouldn't be a topic and then they run with it for the week. Whereas if it was a bigger sport, it would never be news. And so I just cannot, those things like it's such a stupid point. Yeah, as you can see,
No, I
I'm a
get it.
very
I
tolerant.
No, I get that. I get that. Can I just say one thing? Can I
Yeah.
just go and blow my nose?
Yeah, of course.
I feel like I'm like sniffing so much, and then I just
No,
see
all
like
good.
I can just see the microphone like moving every time I do it.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
one
do what you got to do. No worries.
Perfect. Thank you for
No,
that.
no, you don't need to thank me. So we've got a lot of dust, so you've given me a good opportunity to have a quick sneeze break as well. Okay, talking about football.
I'm sorry, I've never done a podcast where both people have taken a sneeze break. That's so funny the way you said that. Oh, you've just reminded me to have a sneeze break. As if that's something people do.
I'm gonna include this bit because it's gonna sound absurd, but we've just renovated our floors, so there is so much dust in our house. So that's the time. I've gone through 3 shirts today moving boxes, and one of my shirts has changed colors because of the dust. So it's been crazy. But yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I've moved like at least 50 boxes in the last 2 days. But yes, we've coined the term a sneeze break. That is amazing. I'm gonna write that down and take note of it. But you mentioned football before. I believe before comedy, and we'll talk about some of the stuff you've done before. But I think you had aspirations to be a football player. Can you tell me a bit about that and when you realized that maybe it wouldn't be for you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted to be a football player. That was like my biggest dream. And I think I probably realized that wasn't going to happen so much later than everyone else realized that wasn't going to happen. Like, I was never any good. And I was bad at like a bad team in Norway. But yeah, you live and you dream. And I guess that's a good thing. I remember being a kid being like, oh, my biggest dream, like dreaming of become like the youngest ever player to play for like Valencia. And then very quickly I was like, oh no, I'm like getting too old now to be the youngest player. And then I was like, well, maybe I can be a player. And then I actually, for a while, the thing that I was like seriously kind of going for was that I was going to be a sports journalist. That was like, so I used to like write for like a local newspaper. I had like a moped that I used to like drive around on, and I would do like little things in the area, and it would be like so local stuff. Like there would just be nothing going on. Just like a guy bought like a bit of a weird car, and I would be like, oh, you got a new car, and how is this car? And I don't know anything about cars, and it would be a lot of stuff like that. It was, but yeah, that was kind of like the dream at the time.
Was it like front page, like new twig found? Here's our exclusive.
Yeah. It was kind of that thing. Like I remember, like, yeah, I honestly need to go back and have a look at like the things that I wrote, because some of them were literally just like someone had like arranged like a hike, so then I came on the hike and I interviewed everyone. Fun. And it was just like kids being like, I'm like, what do you think about the hike? And the kids were like, this is really fun. And then like the headline would be like, Ola and Greta, like 5, enjoy the hike. That would like be the headline. It was just so stupid. But it was a proper newspaper. Like it was like the local newspaper, so everyone read it.
Amazing. I got so many questions on this, maybe even more than the Harry Potter bit. How did you go and source your stories? Would you knock on the door on your moped? Like, how did you go about it?
I had an editor that would like tell me where to go and what to do. Sometimes I would like cover like the local sports, which I remember that was like easy. But I remember being so like ashamed because I obviously played. I was like, I still played for like the local team. So I remember being like not really telling people when I showed up to like, like the first team games that I was a journalist. I'd just be like, I'm just watching the games. I was like undercover journalist, but just like with like no reason whatsoever. Yeah.
Shades in the hood and like a big newspaper.
Just like, yeah, don't worry about me, guys. I'm just chilling here. Don't worry about it. But then the awkward thing is like when you have to interview people and then you're kind of meant to be like, hey, I'm from the newspaper. But then I would just be like, I just walk up to the coach and be like, so what did you think about the game? And he was like, yeah, I thought it was all right. And I was like, okay, how do you think the rest of the season is going to go? And he's like, why are we having this conversation?
You should have read it also a front page. Thor, the best Norwegian soccer player ever. Then just write this amazing like hit piece about yourself and.
Exactly. I should have just planted rumors like scouts looking at Thor.
His athleticism, speed. His left foot is almost as good as his right foot. That's hilarious. So when you mentioned there was a bit of shame when you weren't the player, was that more because you had these aspirations to be a soccer player and it didn't come to fruition? How did you kind of overcome that?
No, I think the shame was just like I'm from a very small place. Are you from Brisbane? Right, sorry, from Melbourne.
Yeah.
So I'm from a very small place. Oh, by the way, can I just say, I was like speaking to an Australian comedian. I was like, "Oh, I'm going to do the Melbourne Festival," and he was like, "Oh, that's so cool." And I was like, "Isn't it so random that they're having like the biggest comedy festival in Australia is in Melbourne? Because like it's such a small place." And he was like, "Oh yeah, I guess." And I was like, "How many people live there?" I was like, 300,000. And he was like, "There's 6 million people living there. What are you
Did
talking
you
about?"
think it was? Yeah.
I thought it was tiny. I thought it was like not tiny, but like I just thought it was like a smaller town. I had no idea. Like it's almost the size of London.
You'll see we've got the Formula One here. We get
And I love
multiple.
the Formula One. I watched it the other day. Like so.
I drive it twice a week almost, and everyone's like, "Oh, you
Really?
get to do it because it's on the way to basketball." Melbourne's crazy. We've got that, and like, everyone gives me this exact look that you've got. I'm like, it's just a road to me. To me, there's no difference. They do it up a little bit, but it's just a regular like road, and I actually avoid it because it's such an inconvenience. But Melbourne's crazy. People can fact check this. We have our football, and given the size of our population is quite small compared to everyone else. I know you think that's a big number, but we have multiple football games a week, and a lot of them are getting 60,000 plus. Given our population, I think it's huge. Some of the big ones get 100,000. Plus, we got a big art scene, like the Melbourne Comedy Festival is probably one of the biggest festivals in the world. Not quite Edinburgh, but it's probably quite close. It's huge, and we'll talk about your shows in a second. We've got, pardon me, everything in Melbourne. It's actually crazy. It blows my mind. But I love that you think it was 300,000 people.
Man, that's so cool though. I've heard really good things about Melbourne. Not that I'm on here to promote Melbourne in general. I would hope people have heard about
Yeah.
it. But I'm excited. But I just had no clue how big it was. But there was something else I was gonna say when I.
About soccer and
Oh yeah, I think I'm from a small place, so I think when you're from a small place, especially in Norway, we have something called like the rule of Jante. We call it Janteloven, and the rule of Jante is like it's like kind of this like concept that you've kind of like grown up with. It's not like an actual law, but it's kind of like you shouldn't think you're better than anyone else. You shouldn't like stand out, sort of thing.
that's
So
similar to us a little bit as well.
so I, like anything like that, it was just like a little bit embarrassing, and I think especially when you're a teenager, you feel even more about that. So it was just like a bit embarrassing to be like, I'm working at the newspaper, sort of thing. It was easier if I just pretended I I didn't. Yeah, in many ways, it's like I remember when I started like doing comedy, I was like my biggest like fear would be to like perform at home. I would be like, oh, that would be so scary. But now I've done it many times and it's lovely.
I've got so many questions on this. Have you heard of tall poppy syndrome? It's a Aussie thing where it's like you don't want to get too big, and it's always about like crushing you, so you're a little bit. You don't want to be arrogant. You don't want to be too big. So Australians are
Yeah.
known to have this concept, which sounds exactly like what you're talking about. Tall poppy syndrome. A lot of people.
And in the UK, I think they got like crab in a bucket thing, which is like if someone gets high, then the other crabs just drags them back down into the bucket or something like that.
Yeah, they also have a class system, which I've had a lot of British people on, and I still don't understand how that works and how like you associate as. And sorry, I've become friendly with a lot of them. It's like, no, you're middle class, and no, you're this. I'm like, why? Like, just you can decide what you want to be. It's imaginary. I would love to know
Yeah.
your take on this because you don't have
Yeah,
that.
it's so strange the whole like class system and like how much people identify with it and people are like, I'm working class and I'm like, your dad is a sir. And like you how are you working class? And they're like, no, but he grew up working class. And I'm like, but you have such a fancy big house. And they'd be like, yeah, but it's generational. And I'm like, what? Like, I don't understand it at all. Like obviously I'm from Norway, we're like very left wing and we're basically like, well, we're social democrats, but it's like leaning like on the socialist sort of part of it. If I was in America, they would call me a communist probably, or
Yeah.
just like not me, just the country in general. So we don't. I mean, obviously there are classes. I guess there are classes in every nation, but it's never something that we would like identify by. And when people are like, "What class are you?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm foreign class. Like, I don't know. Like, is that like its own class? Scandinavian class? I have no idea.
I know it's been brought up a few times, and then like one of the first few times, like, no, I actually need to understand this. This has come up so many times, and I still don't get it. But anyway, you were saying with comedy as well, how you didn't want to perform back home. But were you a doorman in Norway or in England?
Oh, yeah,
doorperson
that is
for the comedy clubs. Yeah,
man. Fucking hell, you've done your research. I was a doorman in a comedy club. Yeah, when I was 18, I was. Yeah. Had I even turned 18? Like 17, 18, I think. No, I think it was 18. That was in Norway. Yeah, that was in Norway.
Okay.
But that was like, so I grew up outside of the city, so that was in a city. It's called Bergen or Bergen. Yep. So that is true. Basically I had gone when I turned 18. I guess through Seinfeld, I like what it was like watching comedy. Like he would obviously do like the little bits at the start of the show, and then I kind of like I kind of like discovered stand up, and I started watching like stand up online and stuff like that. And I remember when I turned 18, I brought like two of my friends to go to this local comedy show, and I was like, oh, I don't know if they're any good. Like I haven't heard about any of them, and it was so funny. And it was we just laughed so much, and I kept looking over at them and being like, guys, isn't this crazy how fun we're having? Like I just couldn't believe how fun it was. And it was like, I mean, it was obviously a good night. Like the lineup was good. A lot of those people in Norway have then gone on to become quite like famous in Norway, and the atmosphere was just great. And it was just like, I couldn't believe how fun it was. And I was like, I really want to do this, but I felt very young. So I just got in touch, and they were like, well, you can be the doorman if you wanna. So I was like, all right, I'll be a doorman. And then I got to see the shows for free. I got to hang out with the comedians. Even though I think they probably was like, who is this kid who's just like, he's not doing stand-up, he's just like doing the door. And I was like, yeah, I'm just doing the door. And that would probably took me a little bit of time before I felt like I could do, because I was 24 when I started doing comedy for the first time. So but I actually think that was good, because I do think if I started when I was 18, I probably would have been so scared of how difficult it was. And also starting at home, I think that would have been so difficult compared to like, at least in London when I started out. And it wasn't, when you start out, you're not good. Like it takes a bit of time. But when I started in London, I was just so excited to be doing it and to be there. And I would do gigs in front of no people. And I would be like, this was amazing. And like, just so excited by it. And I would do gigs in like pubs where people didn't know there was going to be comedy on. They're just like,
that's tough. Yeah.
And suddenly a guy on the microphone is like, you ready for some comedy? And they're like, what? And then we would come on, and then people would chat and be like, guys, can you not chat? You're like heckling. And they're like, we're not heckling. We're in the pub having a conversation. You are ruining our dinner.
It's really interesting. I just spoke to probably our biggest stand-up comedian of all time, or it would be top 3 or top 2. He'll say top 1. No, I'm joking. And he said that when he first started, because he was also in like a country town, he moved to Perth to practice because he didn't want to know anyone. He just wanted to, get up there like a clean plate, fresh plate, whatever the saying is. And that was amazing for him. And then, he got good, came back to Melbourne, and he's like dominated since. So it's really, what was that fear? Was it like a fear of being like ridiculed or people talk about you, or you just didn't want to have to deal with the embarrassment if things didn't go well?
First of all, who was the comedian you spoke to?
Dave Hughes.
Dave Hughes. I don't know who that is, but I also don't know that many Australian comedians. Sorry, you can edit that out if you want to. I was just curious.
No.
I think I think it was like a really cool. I think it was like I just didn't want to stand out, and like I grew up. So basically, my parents had a one-night stand. So I grew up in the south of Norway, and when I was 10 years old, we moved to Bergen, which is in the west, and Bergen has like a very distinctive dialect. but I didn't have that dialect. So already I was standing out like my whole childhood. Like I remember like moving to that little place outside of Bergen, and the teacher being like, "Oh, we got like a new exotic student," and that was me. Like I don't know. Obviously, if you're listening, you can't. I don't know if you can tell how white I am by the way that I speak.
You can't be whiter than than me. But anyway,
then I mean, you definitely can't be whiter than Norwegians, but I guess they were all Norwegians. But yeah, so I think like I was already been like trying so hard not to stand out, and then but I just loved storytelling so much, and I had that from like a young age where like I would tell stories, and then I would always try and like optimize the best way of telling that story. So not like in the way that I would sit down and write it, but I would like tell the story, and if something didn't land, I would like change it until the next time I told the story, and then I would find like the best way of telling the story. And I remember my first girlfriend was like, "You tell your stories exactly the same way every time," and I was like, "Yeah." Because I've been thinking about it. Sometimes I think the thing that like I love when other people tell stories. I love listening to good stories. I just think it's like the best thing ever. But sometimes I'll be with my friends and they'll tell something that happened, and I'm like, no, no. I almost want to like interrupt and be like, no, mate, you're not telling it right. You're not telling it right. Like, don't reveal this information till later. I'm not saying that I'm an expert in it, but obviously a lot of doing stand-up comedy is thinking about these things.
My toxic red flag. My wife doesn't care, so everyone can chill. But when my wife is retelling a story, 80% of the time it's great, but the other 20%, that happened then, and then no, and I'm like, and they're like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "No, I'm telling this." And I'm like, "That was close. Good job. Let's start again." And that happens probably a bit.
Does she think that you're a good storyteller?
Yes. I also do screenwriting, so there's like even more like I know like arcs, and obviously doing this, and like I did improv comedy as well, so like I can see what's happening. So like a part of me, even though I have no OCD, I'm like, no. I'm like, just take a deep breath. And she's like, and then we went to the shops. Like, where's the punchline? That's just
You're like,
story.
this story has no inciting incident. Come on, we got to build on the three arc. What is it? 3-story arc? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, that's one of them. One of her friend's ex-boyfriend's dad, he would be like, so I went for a barbecue and they didn't have any sausages. And then he just stops, smiles like, hey. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he would like laugh. And he actually thinks that's how you tell a story. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen it all.
Those people really stresses me out so much. My first girlfriend's dad would do that. He would tell a story and he would be but he wouldn't laugh at his own jokes. It would be so unclear when the punchline was. So I was like really like listening so intently, like not even enjoying it, just being like, when am I meant to laugh? Because he would just pause and be like, did you hear what I said? And I'd be like, yeah, man, that was crazy. But I was like, what is the point of this?
Yeah, some people, I don't know. Also, this also annoyed me, but more from an empathetic point of view. One girl that I went to school with, I don't know, we were all laughing and she didn't laugh. And I'm like, oh, is everything okay? And she goes, I'm just not a funny person. Like, she doesn't value humor. And I was like, that doesn't need to be your identity. You don't need to say I'm not a funny person. Not everyone's a funny person, but you can be funny at times. She's like, no. It was like it was like she had no value towards it. And I was like, that's strange that you don't want to laugh. I'm not saying it was my joke, or it was like a group joke or whatever happened.
She had like decided, she's like, I'm not a funny person. That's just who I am. I'm not going to be laughing.
My theory is, because she was intellectual, she thought like joking and jokes was beneath an intellectual. Yeah.
Oh, I get that. That's very tough. Annoying. But yeah, I don't know. Sometimes people say like, oh, like the cleverest people are the funny people, but I don't know if that's true, because I do stand-up comedy and there's a lot of stupid people who do stand-up comedy. I include myself in that, by the way.
No, you're very clever. I want to go back to when you said you're 17, you're at the, whatever the title is, the door person. What was it? I know you moved to England for acting. I forget what it's called. But what actually, because 7 years is a long time to see some of the best Norwegian comics. What actually made you go, you know what, I'm actually going to do this?
Yeah, so just to be clear, I wasn't watching them for 7 years before I did it. I probably did a doorman thing for like a year or two. And then I went to like this different school in Norway and then moved to the UK to go to performing arts school. Um, well, I was so clear that I wanted to do it, and I really loved comedy, and I was so obsessed with it. And then I went to this school in Norway when I was 19, which is like it's like a school where like you don't get any grades. It's like a thing that it's a very Scandinavian thing. It's hard to explain, but it's kind of like you can go to these schools to kind of figure out what you want to do, and they
Oh,
yeah, so it's like you don't get any grades. The point of it is just like kind of learning, and I was like doing the school that I went to had like an acting program, but they were also like were doing acting and sketch comedy. But when I got there, everyone wanted to be an actor, and they were all applying for drama schools. And then I got really in that sort of like bubble, and then I applied for drama schools, and I got into the one that I wanted to get into the most, which was this school in Liverpool that was started by Paul McCartney, Sir Paul McCartney.
gotcha.
And so then I went there, and but I was just never like if we did a drama, I'd be like, come on, guys, come on, let's put some jokes in there. Let's not
Yeah.
bore. I feel like this is boring stuff, and Shakespeare and stuff like that. And I was like, why am I speaking Shakespeare? I can't even speak English that well. Like I have no idea what's going on. And I always remember thinking like, oh, acting like it was fun, but it wasn't something that I had like a obviously I must have been okay considering I got into the drama school and stuff, and I had a good time there, but it wasn't like the thing that felt like most naturally to me. And I
Oh,
always
interesting.
knew that I wanted to do stand-up comedy, and I as soon as we graduated, I well before we graduated, I wrote my dissertation about stand-up comedy, and I would interview comedians, and I would also be like, how do I start? And like it's kind of like an excuse to
Or
talk to them.
journalism. Yeah. Using your
Yeah,
journalism study.
exactly.
Yeah.
And then I would then I moved to London, and I did like 3 shows in 3 days. And I remember my biggest fear wasn't people are always like, oh, we scared that no one was gonna laugh. Like I knew I'd done enough research to know how tough it was gonna be at the start. So I just knew like any laugh was a good laugh, and then you can build on that sort of thing. My biggest
Wow.
fear was by far I was so worried that if I don't like this, I have no idea what I want to do with my life.
Is that why you started a bit later? Because you knew you wanted to do it earlier. What age did you know this is what you wanted to do? Is that why you took a while to actually start?
I
Or was it
don't
more
know.
getting
Like
caught up in the acting?
maybe there was a thing like yeah, scared of failing. That could be a thing. There was definitely something getting caught up in like going to school and drama school and stuff like that. That I definitely probably could have started earlier, but I mean, I was still yeah. I don't completely know. There was definitely a fear of failing, um, but I think when I started, it was more like a fear of like if I don't enjoy this, I just really don't know what I want to do. But it was also like one of those things. Like I remember watching this interview with this like Norwegian celebrity. Like he's kind of like just like not just a presenter, but he's a presenter. And they asked him about like confidence, and he said, "Oh, you just got to figure out what you're good at and just do that, and then your confidence will kind of just like go up." And I was like, maybe I just haven't figured out what I'm good at. And when I started doing stand-up comedy, I was like, uh-huh, this is kind of
Oh,
the
what a
thing.
nice moment.
Yeah, and
And
that was yeah.
no,
No,
you you go.
I was just gonna say like that was definitely I never had that feeling with acting ever. But with stand-up comedy so early on, I was like, no, I could definitely do this.
Did you know in the moment when you're doing acting, or was it more being caught up because it's probably a great environment, people having fun, there's a lot going on. If it's the Paul McCartney one, McCarthy, you then meet him. There's probably a lot of like buzz. In the moment, did you know this wasn't it, or was it more with a little bit of reflection that you kind of figured it out?
Don't get me wrong, there was parts of acting that I really enjoyed and still really enjoy. Like I think comedies was so much fun to do, and I think especially when there's stuff that I had written and I had ownership over, I really enjoyed it. But I think
Yeah.
like when we would do a play and like a joke wouldn't land, in my head I'm like, let's cut the joke or let's rewrite the joke. But
Yeah.
sometimes you work with a director who's like, no, we have to follow the text. And I'd be like, but it would be funnier if I said it like this. Or like, it would be better if I don't think this joke is funny enough. Can we not let it? So I think I kind of missed that, like the kind of ownership over it.
And what was it like from the, because you probably do that, you think you're going to get a bit of work as an actor, and I know you it was actually a prestigious school that you went to. I'm sure you were thinking you'd have a lot of auditions, and maybe you did, but probably all the actors I've spoken to, they think they're going to get all of these jobs straight away, and this is going to be their life, and they're going to be back to back. Then they're thinking of all their Oscars and their Emmys. Was it a bit of a reality hit from when you finished?
I think the biggest reality here was just that I just hadn't thought it through that I was a Norwegian living in the UK and how that would like very much define my casting bracket, because
Of
I just got
course.
so many auditions for these like Viking things, like Viking plays and shows and games, and I'd be like, obviously, if you're listening, you don't know what I look like, but maybe you can listen to my voice that I am not like the stereotypical Scandinavian Viking sort of type. Like I am a guy who's got hay fever, which is why I'm like having to blow my nose all the time. And I would go to these auditions and it would be so clear when I was in the audition room and I could see everyone else that was auditioning. It was so clear to me that the casting directors had obviously just looked on my profile, be like, he's Norwegian, his name is Thor Odin,
Thor Odin.
which is
Yeah.
so Viking. But they had not looked at what I look like, because when we were auditioning, it looked like everyone in that room was auditioning to play a Viking, and I was auditioning to play someone getting pillaged by the Vikings.
You can imagine all these like 6'5" jacked dudes, like they have to go in an angle to fit through the door. You're like, hi, I'm here to do the audition. So
That's very much what happened. And we had to do like these group exercises, and they'd be like, I want you guys to go forward and you'll be like, just do like a roar, like, and they would be like, roar, and I would be like, wow. And I was so stupid compared to them.
yeah, we did that in improv, and it took me a while. It wasn't. There's some strange exercises, but yeah, that's hilarious. So when did you? Was it a little bit after that and going through that transition that you did stand up? Like, what was the actual catalyst for starting?
No, I knew straight after drama school that I wanted to be a comedian. I'd known for ages that I wanted to do it, and
Okay.
it was kind of getting to that point where I was like, I have to do it. And I didn't start late compared to most people at all, but I just think I knew from such an early age that I wanted to do it. So I moved to London to become a comedian, and before I moved, I very much like booked in so many different open mics, and I would do wherever I could go. I would just go and do it. I would travel around the country straight away just to try and get stage time.
Wow.
I went to Norwich during the pandemic, and the show was in a strip club, and people didn't know there was going to be comedy on. So like, I'm just on stage and everyone is just a bunch of middle-aged men being like, why is he here? And also, why is this stripper so chatty? Like, what is going on here?
I can imagine. And Candy, everyone say goodbye to Candy, and everyone's like throwing cash, and then like she takes the cash, she walks off. I know this stereotype, and then you walk like, "Hi, I'm Thor," and all these middle-aged men with erections, like, what the fuck? What is this? What's going on? That is probably the worst environment for stand-up comedy.
It's also probably like the worst place to be called Thor as well, because it just sounds like a stripper's name. Like, it sounds like that's obviously not my real name.
That's so great. We've spoken so many times about bad venues and how, at a pub and people like the footy's on or soccer or whatever. That is probably, would you say that's the worst place to perform stand-up? Does anything else spring to mind?
It's definitely the place where I felt the least welcomed to do stand-up comedy. Just based on like, I understand if I went to strip club, I would also not be so happy if there was just this lanky Norwegian guy talking about like how difficult it was moving to the UK and integrating.
That is hilarious. That's actually a great segue because I don't believe you knew too many people, and on top of that, you've said that your English wasn't that great. It's also funny that your English wasn't that great, and now you rely on it for your job. So can you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, my English was not good at all growing up. Like I've always been like I was always like the classic like a class clown and stuff like that. And one thing that I would do loads was just like I think my English was just really good, and people no, my English was really bad, and people would kind of like laugh at that. So then I would probably amp it up even more, like how bad it was, and then people would laugh loads about that and stuff. And I remember like having this teacher in school that he gave me such bad marks. And I remember he said to me, he was like, "Oh, you're always trying to be so funny, and you're always trying to be so cool." And I was like, "Mate, I don't know, but no one thinks that I'm cool. Like no one's out
Thank
there
you
in
for
the
the
hard Thor is
compliment.
so cool." Yeah, not at
Yeah.
all. Like I was trying to be funny. He was right in that. And I think he was like, "You got to stop trying to be so funny." Well, jokes are on him because I am thriving and
Yeah.
very much living in a flat share with my friends. So maybe if I had stopped trying to be funny, I would have been able to afford my own home by now. But I do like my life, so I will never change anything.
Great. And you're smiling, you're beaming the whole time. I think you've made the right decision. And
Now I'm
then,
only messing. But yeah, my
yeah.
English was very, very bad. And also, I understand why he said that. Oh, that's fine. And I remember when I was leaving school, we in Norway, it's a bit random what sort of subjects you have to like do like an oral exam in. And I was just really unlucky that I got picked to do English. And I was so nervous. So I don't know if you did like any foreign languages in school, but it's like that, right?
So,
Like you got to stand in front of like a couple of people and you got to do like an oral presentation of something, and I had to speak English for the whole time, and I was so nervous going into this that I threw up twice before the exam in the
at least it
morning.
was before.
Yeah, oh yeah, not during it, but
Yeah.
just before. Like I was at school and I remember speaking to someone and just running into the bathroom and like throwing up because I was just so nervous. And I tried to call like my GP to be like my doctor to be like, not do this? And yeah, I just really wasn't good at all at speaking English.
I got so many questions on this. And also people will be surprised because I thought this beforehand that, English, everyone would be able to speak English in Norway at a high level. And I guess that's probably not the case. But I remember I did a French oral and I learned French through written. It was rote learn. It was the stupidest way to learn. So I actually couldn't hear, but I remembered all the words, and I wouldn't say a photographic memory, but a pretty good memory. So my teacher would just write everything on a piece of paper, and I just remembered the pages. So when it was our oral, our final year exam, they go like, "Hi, how are you?" In French, I'm like, "My name's Michael. I sit on floor. I just got my words wrong. I was like, tram, I got, but mum drove me." And they're like, "Okay, let's
Oh my God.
begin." Like I could not speak. And then they asked me a bit. This is a second story. They asked a bit about history, and I did not know what the question was. And because my parents are South African, I was like, "Oh, because of the apartheid." And I couldn't say that my parents were there for the apartheid. I said growing up in the apartheid, and then they stopped the oral and said, "Oh, what in English?" And they're like, "Oh, you mean your parents were there for the apartheid?" And I was like, "See," no, I'm joking. If anyone knows, that's the wrong language. But it was so bad, and it was like, I'm embarrassed for them that they had to say this. My French was atrocious, but I get it.
Do you speak French now?
Not, I haven't spoken a word since school. It's been at least 10 years. I wouldn't be able to hear it, or I don't
Oh,
even think I'd
fair
be able to.
enough.
Yeah, it was so embarrassing. My goodness. But also, kudos to you. Something that perhaps you're not great at. And then, maybe you could have just, I know you mentioned this before, but maybe you could have just done it in Norwegian. You actually did it in English despite it being potentially a weakness. Did you just not care by the end? Like what allowed you to do that?
Well, my English did become much better through like basically reading. Like after school, I was like, this is so bad. Like my English is so bad. And I started reading a lot. And that kind of helps because when you're reading, then your mindset, you start thinking a little bit in that language if you're reading a lot. So that helped. And then obviously I moved to the UK to go to this drama school. So my English was getting a lot better by then. So I think I stopped caring a lot. Like my early 20s, I just stopped caring at all. There was such a big shift that happened when I moved away from home.
Oh, was that, I guess, the fear of people knowing and all of that stuff, like a way to kind of been lifted? Like you're just here to live your best life type thing?
I think so, yeah. And I guess you're just surrounded by other creatives, and like I didn't grow up with anyone being creative around me. Like, there was probably more people who were creative, and I just didn't realize. But it wasn't that kind of like environment where I grew up. So, yeah, and I just didn't care, and I still don't care. Like people, obviously, you do care a little bit because like I obviously care about like my career, and I care about like people liking me in general. I think like to a healthy extent, I'd say. um but
That's great.
it's not like I go on stage every night and I'm like, oh, I really hope they resonate with this or whatever. Like and I definitely don't start thinking about like people like, oh, what if they don't like me and stuff like that. Very much like a half glass full type of person, and I would normally think like this could be amazing. Like
Oh,
yeah, I
nice.
would normally try and think like that. Yeah, and the bigger the audience, the better. Like um the biggest gigs I've ever done, I've probably been some of the gigs I've been least nervous about. I've just been so excited to go on stage, and because I've just been like, I've worked hard, and I was like, I feel like this is going to go really well.
Can you tell me more about this? That is such a good outlook. Is it just like, look at the opportunity I've got, I'm just going to give it my best go?
Yeah, I think so. And I think like feeling really like privileged and blessed to get in those situations. And I also think there's a thing when because stand-up comedy, it's a thing like you really do have to like pay your dues. So like you've done all of those terrible, horrible gigs in front of like five people in a strip club and stuff like that. So gigging in front of 3,000 people who want to laugh and there's a good atmosphere, it's just going to be so much easier.
Yeah.
And I also think that's like it's not like I have that view with everything in my life. I can definitely worry about stuff, but with comedy, I just think I don't know, people come out to laugh, and I definitely have an attitude that I think right now I'm on tour, so it's a little bit different because when you're on tour, like you're just playing to your audience. People have bought a ticket to see you specifically, not just to the comedy show. There's like, we're here to see you. So then, it's even better. Like, I'm like, wow, they've like, I can't believe it. Like, I was doing my show in London last night, and I hear about these people who saw me maybe like 4 years ago, or they've like, you know, they booked like this entire day off like 2, 3 months ago. And I feel so honored that they've done that. Like, it means so much
Wow.
to me. And I think stuff like that just helps.
I love that attitude. Congratulations for getting there in your career. How do you go with bombing?
Yeah, it's not fun. It's really not fun. But it's also not as bad as people think, because that is always the thing when you start comedy. Like, people are always wondering, like, oh, what was your worst bomb? Which is such a mad thing to like when you meet someone and the first thing you ask is the worst thing about their profession. Like, if
Be
I
the
met a surgeon,
worst.
I would never be like, "You're a surgeon. Have you ever killed someone?" Like, I wouldn't have it open with that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not as bad. I think what you realize very quickly is that bombing is normally just silence. And silence, when you do stand up comedy, is not great. But at the end of the day, it is just silence, you know? And for a lot of people, silence is what they want with life. So, it's not what you want when you're a stand up comedian, but when it happens, obviously it doesn't happen a lot when you kind of been going for a bit. It's not as bad as people think. And also the thing that really is bad, because normally when you bomb, it's everyone is bombing. Like the audience, or like the atmosphere is just really low for whatever reason, and everyone is doing badly. What really hurts, and this has happened a few times to me, especially when I was newer, is when everyone is doing well, you go on and you bomb.
Yeah.
That is so painful because all the other comedians are so aware of it. Everyone's aware of it. That really burns in your body. Like it's like your body just is like, I can't believe this is happening. Can't believe this is happening.
How do you, okay, two things. On stage, are you just like, I just need to wrap this up? And a second point, when you see your fellow comedians, do you put your head down? Or like, to me, that would be more embarrassing, not to the crowd, but maybe the fellow comedians in the green room.
Well, you have to do your time, so you can't really just wrap it up. And I guess like you always have some sort of hope that like this next joke that'll get him, like that this will turn it around. It is definitely more embarrassing. The worst part of it is normally the comedians, yeah, especially if you don't know them. Like when I was new, I obviously wouldn't know that many people, so that is the worst thing. And they would, they'll be nice and be like, good work, man. And I'd be like, oh, I know that wasn't good. Like I was also there. You don't think I was there? It's kind of so clear as well, like whether it's going well or not. If no one's laughing, it's very, very rarely going well. So that was painful. But then you get to a point though where you get a lot of friends, and some of the funniest things are seeing like your mate, who is a good comedian, die on their ass, and just seeing them like literally panicking and trying everything on stage. That is just so funny, and and that's kind of nice about it, I think.
Is it from like a non-judgmental, like we've been there, we've done that? It's kind of like a badge of honor. We're not actually teasing you, but it is a funny situation. It's not like you're a shit comedian.
Yeah, it's like a relatable. It's like a relatable. It's like relatable humor, basically. Like it's funny because we've all been there, and it's also something funny about seeing this person who's normally so like confident and slick on stage, just completely losing that like aura about them, and there's something so vulnerable that comes out when someone's bombing, and you see them try all of these different things, and that I guess that is so sweet, but also kind of funny.
I love that. Have there been any bombs or bad gigs that still stick with you today?
Yeah, I mean, I remember one of the first times I gigged in Norwegian, like I'd kind of been like, getting a little bit more established in the UK, very slowly moving from the open mic to like the pro circuit, and was like, getting paid to do stand-up comedy. And I went back to Norway, and I was performing at this like club in Oslo, and it was one of those where like everyone did really well. I went on, and it just really didn't go well. And I remember one of the comedians said something that was actually so helpful to me afterwards. He was like, I felt like you came in with a different pace than everyone else. And it was definitely that. Like I just was not like in the room. Like I kind of just went on, and probably because I was nervous about doing it, because it felt so much more real, I probably just came in swinging a bit too much and not really landing in the room. But yeah, that I remember that really well. That was painful. And then I also remember one thing. I mean, I actually laughed so much when we did this gig, but I think the biggest fear for me doing stand-up comedy isn't that people aren't laughing. Obviously, that is like a fear as well. You don't want that to happen. The worst thing that can ever happen is when people don't pay attention and people don't care. Because I did that one time when I did this charity gig, and it was just in like this student bar, and people weren't paying attention. Like we were just doing the show, and people were playing pool, or they're just chatting. And that was kind of worse, where you feel like, oh, people don't even care about us being here. But that's also why I thought it was so funny, because it was just so funny seeing comedians not address it and just doing the sets as if everyone was just like loving it.
That's so funny. I also like from the situation before where you learn like a pacing. Pacing is such a such a valuable lesson as well. So that's probably, even though it's not your finest gig, but you've probably kept the positive of that for future gigs.
Oh, 100%. I remember getting told very early on that the gigs you don't do well are the gigs you're going to learn most from, which I do think is so true. And you also get to a point where, like, I mean, a lot of doing stand-up comedy is trying new jokes, and new jokes can work really well, but they can also not work. So, like, you just have to get used to that. But I remember when I went, just before I went to drama school, and I went to this school in Norway where you could, like, kind of figure out what you want to do with your life. I remember having a teacher from the UK, and he gave us this thing before he left. And I don't know if it's just like a saying or if it's from someone specific. You've probably heard it, which is called "Ever tried, ever failed, no worries, try again, fail better." Right? And that is all that stand-up comedy is, and that I think about that in life all the time. Still, it's just try again and just fail better. Like, just be better at what than you were last time, and you will just get better.
That takes a lot of courage and resilience. And while you're thinking of that, also when you know you've got a good bit or a good 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, and then there's new material, new crowd, and you try the new material and perhaps it's not working, you could just play all your best bits, but then you're not going to grow. And you've got like a longevity mindset. You want to be doing this your whole life. So how do you balance that? Because it does take a lot of courage to do that.
Yeah, that has happened so many times where like you start doing the new and it's not working, and it's just like and you panic and you go back to old because you don't just want that validation from the audience. But it's so true. Like, you don't grow, and I think like also the most fun thing about doing comedy is really the creating of the comedy. Like, I mean, it's obviously fun performing and stuff, but the most fun is when you have a new bit that is really working. Because I just get so proud. I'm like, I can't believe that I just created this. Like, I have this bit now and people are liking it, and I feel so proud of it. Like, I've always liked creating stuff, and I think, for instance, with acting, what I always missed was that, like, you do a play, you rehearse for a few weeks, you do the show, then you're done, right? You're not really I guess you could say you're building your career, but it doesn't really work like that. But with comedy, if you write a joke, yeah, you're not going to tell that joke for the rest of your life. You are going to become a better comedian. But theoretically, you just have that joke now. You can just have that joke forever, and you just build up first a set, and then you build up 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, 20 minutes, then you build up a show. Like, I'm on a tour with my first show right now, and you know, I was thinking about it yesterday. I was like, wow, I've actually worked so hard to get the show to this sort of state, and I'm actually so proud of it. Like, yeah, and that is definitely like a thing, and and like we're gonna film the show later on this year, and like that'll be a thing, right? That I'm like, then I can have that recording forever, and I can show that show forever.
I love this. Is this One Night Stand Baby?
Yeah, One Night Stand Baby.
So this is what I love, because sometimes you can say a joke so many times, and obviously you're refining, getting better, and then you just don't want to say it anymore. But you've been on, I think just came out of Edinburgh. I don't ever remember when Edinburgh was. You're coming to Australia for the Melbourne Comedy Festival. People can check it out. The ticket links are in the episode notes. But isn't that like so exciting that you are still excited by this show? Like, to me, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's obviously parts of me sometimes that like, because I worked a lot on the show, and then because I had such a nice Edinburgh Fringe, I've been like touring it now, and like I've done the show a lot of times. So there's obviously parts of me that's like really excited to write new stuff and build something new. But no, I am so proud of it, and I do think that it's a good thing that like even now, after doing the show so many times, I'm really proud of it, and I'm proud of so many of those jokes, and I'm sure that like I look back when I'm older, and hopefully I look back and be like, oh, that was bad, or like these things definitely could have improved so much. I very much hope that happens, but at the moment I am really proud of it, and just creating something, and it has like a story arc to it that I care a lot about. Like, my parents, like I said, they had a one night stand. They've never been together, but they both raised me together. So it's like, it's a nice story in that sense. And I'm really proud of my parents, and it's a story that I like telling.
That is amazing. I've got a billion questions on this as well. I want to talk about your family and being a one night baby, but I just want to tie up the last bit about like a tour run. For example, in Edinburgh, it's hectic. A lot of stress selling tickets. I know you got like awards and all this stuff, and you got recognition, which is amazing. How do you deal with the long run, selling tickets? You would have done flyering, which you've said that you're amazing at, which I want to hear about. How do you deal with the stress of it all, and how do you stay sane?
Well, I mean, there's so many different answers to that question. I would say the first thing is like in terms of flyering and stuff, that's stuff that I did. I mean, I'm not saying that I will never have to do it again, but hopefully when I do like my proper shows, I don't have to do it again.
Yeah.
So I didn't fly for my show in Edinburgh last year. Like,
Oh, nice.
we were meant to have flyers, but then my whole run sold out really early, which was really, really nice. And
That's
like
amazing.
I'm not trying to downplay that. I was so proud about that, you know.
Yeah,
And
that's
it was really
rare as hell, especially
it
in
was
Edinburgh.
it was very, very cool. So that was a lucky that I had such a lucky thing that I didn't have to worry about ticket sales. Like, and I feel so grateful for that. But it is true. At some point, when I started doing comedy and I did my first Edinburgh Fringe, when I'm like sharing hours with other people, there was definitely a time where I was a much better flyer than I was a comedian, because like I got trained by this other Norwegian comedian who lived in the UK at the time called Pernille Haaland, and she really showed me how to flyer, and then I became so good at flyering, and we would like sell out every show, and then I would be so bad at comedy, and I just didn't have any material. But I think for me the biggest struggle of doing like a run like that is actually more yeah, a little bit more like the mental part. I've definitely done fringes, Edinburgh fringes before, where because there's a month where like the last week, the lights have left my eyes, and I've gone from being this very like, you know, optimistic, like very happy go lucky guy to be like very grateful to be there, to just being like I am so tired and kind of done. But when I did it last year, I very much paced myself because it was my first show and I wanted it to be good. So I spent a lot of more time like home, like as in where I was staying, on just like I wasn't doing as many things as I have done before. But the biggest difficult for me is probably physically, like my voice and stuff. So I do like a voice warm up before every single show.
Cool. And how did you discover that? I read somewhere that you lost your voice. Was it through like the panic of I cannot lose my voice? I'm doing stand up. I need to figure out what to do.
Yeah, that is honestly the worst feeling in the world, way more than a bomb, is losing your voice on stage and the audience is clocking that it's happening. It's so uncomfortable. And
Oh wow.
because if you're a stand-up comedian, the only thing you really need is your voice. If there is no voice, there is no show. I'm not doing any miming. Like I don't have anything else but my voice. And it's really painful. And then you can kind of see the comedian battling the sort of voice and trying to like not lose it, and that the whole thing just becomes about that. So I that is really, really painful. Not to sorry make this that dramatic, but
No, no,
I
no, of
think
course.
because of that I've just tried so many different things. You know, I'm lucky the fact that I went to performing arts school. I did have loads of voice training there, which you know which is still like a struggle for me, and I still try different things for it to be as good as possible. But like I do a voice warm up, I steam every night before I go to bed to kind of like steam your vocal
Cool.
cords. And I drink so much water to make sure that I hydrated. Before this, I like walked around and I just did like a little warm up just to like get ready to speak for like an hour and a half. And yeah, it's that is for me. I mean, obviously, the biggest challenge is like you got to write a show, you got to create an audience that comes to see that show. But
Yep.
then when you're there for the month, I would say for me the biggest fear is like the voice, and like I didn't really drink in Edinburgh last year, and um yeah, just because like alcohol dehydrates you. So yeah, trying not to do that. I didn't have any Coca Colas either because this happened with Coca-Cola, and I love Coca Cola so much, which is yeah,
That-
that was the real struggle.
That's hilarious. I've never heard that one before, but that's so interesting with what you do. And were you able with this run, because it's still long and yes, you're doing really well, were you able to have fun? Because it is a long run.
Oh,
Oh, cool.
absolutely! Like so much fun. I'm yeah. I've just had such a nice career-wise, I've just had such a nice year, and I feel like I've grown so much, and I feel like so many things have changed for me. And these are things that I've been working really hard on. So I feel so grateful, but also like I'm having so much fun. Like even now I'm on tour and I'm traveling. It's you get a bit tired, and I like for instance last week I like traveled up to Edinburgh, which took 5 hours. I did the show that night. I traveled back to Edinburgh on the Friday, which was 5 hours as well. And I'm tired, but I still did like 3 gigs in London that night. And on a Saturday, I did 6 gigs in London. And then on a Sunday morning, went to Newcastle to do the show. So it's like, I wouldn't have done that if I didn't have so much fun doing it. I love it so much. And I'm so grateful that I found out what I wanted to do with my life.
That is crazy. I wish we could end it there, but I've still got a few more. That I love. You're a very inspiring guy. Are you perform? Because I think you're on a bill with 3 people in Melbourne. Are you going to do bits from that, or is it? Because I assume that's like an hour-ish show, maybe less, maybe more. So do you just pick out the best bits, or it depends on the day? How are you going to do it in Melbourne?
I'm gonna do bits from it for sure. I don't completely know exactly what I'm gonna do. I think like when people come to New Order, which is what the show is called, New Order is like a show that Melbourne Comedy Festival have been doing for like I don't know how long, like years and years and years and years. And a lot of the comedians that I look up to has at some point done this show. So I think like I feel like my biggest concern for that is just that it's going to be funny. Like, rather than when you do an hour, I'm thinking obviously like funny is always going to be the most important. But then I think more about like the arc of the story and stuff. And I think when you do like a bill with there's 3 of us, it's more like I want people to be like, that was really funny. We had a great time. It was interesting. Sure, but like funny is like the main thing.
I love that. And maybe we will give a bit of a synopsis because this is crazy to me. You would have got this a lot. You're saying that you're a one-night stand baby, but it's a very different type of relationship. You can tell your story, but the idea is that your mum and dad never actually had a relationship. They obviously had the one-night stand, and then they raised you as like friends, which I've never heard of in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I think Friends was almost a stretch, to be honest. Like, they just didn't know each other. So it was very much more of my mom phoning around the Norwegian military looking for my dad because she'd become pregnant. Then finding him, they lived on different ends of Norway. And then them like deciding to like have this child together, which, if anything, is the thing that I'm most grateful for in my life. And then they moved to this little town where they met, which was in the south of Norway. And they lived 5 minutes away from each other. And yeah, we just like, I had such a happy childhood because they just made a lot of compromises. And, I know for a fact that there was definitely challenges for them as well. But there was challenges that I was very unaware of, like I never
Interesting.
think of like, that we didn't have that much money, or even between my mum and my dad, they would have had loads of arguments, who's going to pay for this, who's going to pay for that. But they really made such a good effort. And like like I think like sometimes in my show, I talk a lot about my ex-girlfriend's family because she came from a much more like traditional family, and they're very like close together, and they're like a very much like a family unit. Like she has like they spend a lot of time together as a family. And my family's, if I bet like one of my first birthdays, my birthday must have been like a meetup group. Do you know what that is? It's like when a bunch of people who don't know each other, like it's like strangers, like basically trying to make new friends. Like it must have felt like that, where everyone was like, so who are you? Like no one knows each other at all. But like my mom has like a great relationship to my dad's side of the family. My mom still speaks to my grandma, so my dad's mom, every single month. And my dad will give my brother, I have a half brother on my mom's side, like my dad gives him like Christmas presents and stuff like that. So
wow.
It's very nice.
It's also crazy to me that your mum, and I've heard a bit more about the story, but your mum's messaging everyone in the army base like, who is this guy? When does she? So I got two questions. So does the entire army base know that your father had a one night stand, or was she just like, I need to contact this guy?
No, they don't know that he had a one night stand. I mean, I'm sure some people knew, but I don't think. No, I mean, she wasn't calling it to one army base. She was just calling around the country, because they had met when he was like based somewhere for like 2 weeks. So she probably called that place, but he wasn't there. So then she's calling around the military and just being like, "Hey, I'm looking for this guy." And I know that eventually, this was like in the mid-90s, so she didn't have, like, she didn't have her own phone. So she used to walk past on the way to university. There used to be like a phone booth. She would walk past every day, and she would go into that phone booth every day, and then she would try this number she had now. And eventually she got his address, and then she sent him a letter.
Can you tell us about the letter? Because then I've got many more questions.
So what I know from that letter is that it said two things. It said, one, I'm pregnant, and two, I have chlamydia. and what I love so much about my dad is my dad's response was, I'll have the baby, but I don't think the chlamydia is mine. To this day, my dad is like, that chlamydia had nothing to do with me. I got tested, blah, 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 blah.
I have even more questions, but when me and my wife were doing prep for this, I didn't even think, I'm like, that's a tough day in the office for your dad. I know everything's worked out well. Now that time has passed with your dad, that's not like the best letter that you can receive at the time. How did he respond to that?
Well, I mean, it would be, I don't even know. I would assume with horror and with, oh no, what have we done? And then I know that they obviously had like conversations like, are we going to keep the baby? Are we not going to keep it? I was kind of lucky that my mom had grown up with like her grandparents being quite religious and stuff. So my mom was actually, she was like very anti-abortion when she was like in her mid-20s. Like she didn't believe that women should be allowed to have abortions. Now I have grown up, and my mom absolutely believes they should be allowed to have abortions.
You get an abortion. No, you get an abortion.
I don't know if that's because of me, but she's a lot more liberal now. She's so pro-choice now. It's actually offensive to me how pro-choice she's become after I've grown up. But I guess that was lucky. But I know that my dad's biggest fear was just that he wouldn't have like a close relationship to me, and that he would have this like kind of like, oh, I see my dad a couple of times a year sort of relationship. But yeah, no, I mean, if I got that letter now, I would be so angry and frustrated, and I'd be like, oh no. And because I mean, I'm sure like both of them had like, they had probably, if not plans, at least dreams of how their future would look like. Like they were 27, so they were both very young, and you're kind of like, you have ideas of what your life is going to look like, right? And that idea was probably not, I'll hook up with this random guy who told me he has a six-pack. He didn't have a six-pack. That's what my mum says. And for my dad to be like hooking up with this girl that he met in a pub one night, and then that for them to be such a big part of each other's lives, it's but it's also kind of wonderful, I think, in that way, that when I did the show in Edinburgh, they both flew over at the same time, so they spent 5 days together in a hotel. Not just in the hotel, but they stayed in the same hotel. Well, I would hope not. But, just a sequel coming out in a couple of years, they were in a hotel, like they stayed in the same hotel, and they just spent every day together in Edinburgh. Like they had breakfast together, they had dinner together, they went and watched shows together. It was like they were like a married couple, and those 5 days was potentially the best 5 days of my life. I thought it was so nice.
That's brilliant. And also, I'm sure you would have been a little bit scared performing the show to them as well. So on top of that, what a nice... Oh, yeah. Tell me.
Yeah, so anxious. I think like it was only when I was about to go on stage that I realized how much I'm actually exposing them. Because when I wrote the show, Like the show's very much, it's a love letter to my parents. It's not like a critique. Like, how could you not wear a condom? It's not like that sort of thing.
Yep.
But then suddenly I was like, this show is, so much of the show is about them. It's about me as well, obviously, but it's, you know, they haven't decided to go public with this. But when they did like the show, it was just like, yeah, it meant so much to me that they liked the show. And they actually came to see it twice, and I brought them up on stage at the end, and they bowed with me, and yeah, that was a very special moment.
That's amazing. Yeah. And last question on that, we'll have to do a part 2 because I've got so many more questions on this. I don't even know which one to. Oh yeah, so you implied this before, and I've heard on other podcasts as well, where, you know, not all conventional relationships are actually that healthy. They can be abusive relationships or divorce, or not everyone like loves each other. But this was a different type of love. So how has this informed relationships, I guess, against conventional ones? Because you're so optimistic, you're so happy. Yeah, I'd love to know.
I think I definitely have never felt like the sort of like panic or urge that I have to be in a relationship. Like, I think definitely a lot of my friends would feel that a lot more, like, oh, we have to get married, we have to do this. I'm not saying that I don't want to be in a relationship. I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to be married.
It's not that like desperation where I need this to complete myself type thing.
It's definitely not like I'm a failure if I don't get married sort of thing. And I guess that is just because, like, I just didn't grow up with my parents being married. You know, both of my parents did marry later to different people, and then they both got divorced from those people. So, like, I think if anything, you know, there was parts of that was so much worse than like the relationship between my mum and my dad. So yeah, I would say probably that. Like, I've never had that like need to, and I remember saying to my dad one time, I was like, oh, but you know, when you were my age, like, you had a child, and my dad was like, yeah, but not on purpose. And I was like, okay.
Oh, that's great. And actually, this is the last question on that. Did your parents try and give it a go, or did they? Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
No, they never did. No, I think maybe they had like ideas of could it work, could it not work, but they were never in a relationship, like, ever at all. And I think maybe there were times where they could have tried, but then I think on many ways it was like two ships passing, where like someone was in a relationship. And I'm not saying it was like the Ross and Rachel of Norway.
I was just thinking that, yeah.
But I also think they, you know, as they kind of got to know each other more, realize how different they are as people, and I think it's definitely worked out better for me, the part that they haven't been together.
Yeah, well, they sound amazing, and we'll probably end on this. I know that your show became so popular that BBC Scandinavia or Norway did a bit on your mum. That would have been embarrassing for your mum, that the entire world potentially knows she has chlamydia. But was that a special moment for your family as well?
Yeah, so that was in Edinburgh and leading up to Edinburgh. NRK, which is our equivalent of the BBC, or I guess ABC for you guys, did like a feature of me, you know, doing my first show and building up that show, and then they came when my parents came to watch it, so they came at the same time. So it wasn't just my mom and my dad. So it was kind of like them reuniting after all of these years, because even though I grew up and I have loads of memories of my parents together when I grew up, when, like I said, when we were 10, my mum and I, we moved to Bergen, which is 8 hours away. So from that moment on, my parents haven't really seen each other much because they just live so far away from each other.
Yeah.
So it was so special. So that was included in those 5 days. And yeah, they did actually do the chlamydia thing, which I was not that happy about. And I think when I told the story, or when I wrote that joke, obviously I didn't say the thing about the letter. It was a different story about basically my grandma telling me about everyone in our family who's ever had chlamydia. Like, my grandma did that when I was younger. And I think in my head, I was like, this is funny that my grandma would do that. I also think there's something so nice about I know nice sounds like maybe a weird word to use, but I
Nice
mean,
family chlamydia exchange.
no, yeah, like the
DNA.
unity, like that's who we are. We get
Yeah.
chlamydia. Come
Yeah.
on, we're the Stenhaugs. I mean more like I thought it was so nice that because my grandma said that in response to my mum's cousin having got chlamydia and feeling like very ashamed of it, and the response was like, "Oh, this is not a big deal." And then she was like, "He's had chlamydia, she's had chlamydia,"
We've all had
and
chlamydia.
we've all had chlamydia. But I just thought, what a progressive thing for someone, to say of that age, where STIs are very much like frowned upon, and people would never ever talk about it. And I'm obviously not saying you shouldn't care about STI. Like, no,
Just get one. Yeah, just go and grab one.
Nice, just get one.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, like, I'm a one night stand baby. No one's better wearing condoms than I am. I'm pretty sure.
That's great.
But I mean more in the sense that, like, I mean, they are just a part of life, in the sense that, like, we get colds and we get, whatever. And just because it's related to sex doesn't need to be that shameful. And I think for like an old woman to say that at that point, I think is really nice. But I think I have later realized how revealing it is to my mom and my family. And if I did write a show again, would I include that bit? Maybe not. Or maybe I would have asked the Norwegian TV to not include that bit. But they did. And my mom don't care at all. My mom is so open about stuff. And she's like, oh, well, maybe people will learn then. And I think that's a nice way of looking at it.
That is an amazing take. I just remember because it was my wife and the lady that owns the cafe, and we were reading and we all had a good laugh, because even though I know from what I heard about your mum wanting to, share this and realizing that there shouldn't be any stigma or shame, it's still a hilarious concept that potentially millions of people know. But yeah, I love that. I think that's a great place to end the podcast. Before we go, how can people follow you and keep up to date with you?
So I'm mainly active on Instagram. That's like what I use. My Instagram handle is Thor Tells Jokes. So just my name, Thor, is what I tell jokes. It's at Thor Tells Jokes. And I'm coming to Australia, which I'm really, really excited about. I just hope that my flights will get sorted and stuff because of this war in Iran. And I know there's so many people to feel bad about that war, but I really hope I can come to Australia because I'm very excited about it. And I'll be at the festival for the whole month, like doing this show. And I'm doing it with two other brilliant comedians, I just want to say. So these are people from the UK, and they are so funny that I can't imagine that people aren't going to come to this show and have a good time. And if you don't have a good time, well, fair enough, that's on me. But I really think you will.
Amazing. I'm going to check out the show. You are very inspiring. You've got a great attitude. You're very optimistic and positive. And yeah, thank you so much for having this chat with me.
Well, thank you so much. And can I just say, that's very kind of you to say that. Also, really well researched. Oh my days. Like, you've some of these things, I'm like, how do you even know this? Yes, well done, man. This was really fun. Thanks so much for having me.
I love how Thor talks about how the gigs that don't go well end up being the most important for you, in that you have an opportunity to learn the most from. He says this is essential to learning and growing in any facet of life. Further, Thor says, try again, fail better. In essence, this isn't about avoiding failure, but simply making your failures more useful, whereby you upgrade, upskill, and learn so you can be better for next time. It was also really interesting to hear Thor talk about the law of Jante, in that you shouldn't stand out or think you're too special, and it's all about not aiming too high, which is similar to the Australian saying, tall poppy syndrome. The truth is, growth requires you to stand out and shine. It requires one to take risks, back yourself, and put yourself in positions where failure is inevitable. Thor is living proof that despite this kind of collective thinking, you can carve your own path, simply by choosing to pursue what matters to you. Because failure isn't something to avoid, it's something to engage with. It's in the trying, the risking, and yes, the failing that things start to open up. Opportunities come, confidence builds, and progress happens. So maybe the takeaway is this: don't shrink yourself to fit in. Step forward, take the risk, and if you fail, fail better.
Thank you for listening to the Funny and Failure podcast, exploring the deeper side of comedy and life.